Been waiting all week for that Saturday show. Tune in, see what happened, let your troubles go. Work real hard, now it's time to take it slow. Kick back and relax with that Saturday show.
Good morning, Albuquerque. It's Saturday morning again, and it's time for another episode of That Saturday Show, brought to you by the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice. I'm Jim Harvey, and I'm happy to be your host. We have another great show lined up for you today, with emphasis on youth and the important work that they are doing right here in Albuquerque. More on the story about toxic and radioactive dumping in Rio Rancho. And yes, we are getting ready to march, or as Tom Dent, our director, prefers, walk in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Washington, D.C. on August 28th, right here in Albuquerque, for voting rights. Also, let's not lose sight of the scandalous proposal to put the citizens of Albuquerque in debt for $70 to $80 million, and that's a low estimate, for a soccer stadium when the owner could pay for it with his own money, since he's worth an estimated $27 billion. What kind of deal are we getting for our long-term debt? Promising news, the eviction moratorium has been extended for about 60 days by the CDC, and it will apply to an estimated 90% of the country. Let's hope that includes us here. But before we delve deeper, let me get this off my chest. Earlier in the week, I attended a wonderful mural dedication of beautiful works done by young people for Crossroads for Women. They have a great new building on MLK, and the art dedication was inspiring. In a side conversation with one of the senior staff, I learned that a significant portion of the parking lot that surrounds the building does not belong to Crossroads. In fact, only 2 spaces for cars are theirs. The rest of the parking lot belongs to First Presbyterian Church, which sits by the freeway. Well, the church has offered to sell the lot closest to Crossroads, and you would say that's nice of them. But they're asking for $1 million for a parking lot. So much for being good Christians. It's downright robbery. Shame on the church. The Cheryl Williams Stapleton saga continues with one more and more revealing pieces of information about the fallen influential leader. The investigation now is so far-reaching that people are lawyering up wherever they possibly can, and some people are nervous even if they don't feel they need to be. Even the African American Performing Arts Center is acting like they have something to hide behind the mismanagement, the bylaws violations, board members allegedly drawing paychecks, and missing artwork. There is no end to sounds and smells of innocent people being sacrificed and guilty people heading for cover. This incident is disappointing and just makes me angry, but stay tuned. And finally, the gift that keeps on giving. Avangrid. The more we dig into the story, the uglier the merger with KUNM looks, and so do our prospects for a clean energy environment with reliable utilities. Let's remember the cries from people in New England. When they hear us thinking about this, they yell, "Don't do it!" Well, after all that, I think we could use some good news, don't you? Hassani, help us out there.
Thank you, and welcome to Good News News. I'm your correspondent, Hassani Olojimi, and I'm Gugu for Good News. The goal of this segment is to inspire and uplift you, the viewer, with nothing but good news. Let's jump right in, shall we? Our first story reads like this. Instead of issuing tickets for broken headlights, Denver police are handing out gift cards to get them fixed. A new partnership with the police in Colorado is putting smiles on the faces of motorists who might not have the money to fix a broken part on their vehicle. One Advanced Auto Parts store has gifted the Denver police department with 100 gift cards worth $25 to hand out to drivers who are normally pulled over by cops and given a warning or a ticket to pay a fine. Now, when they pull over a motorist for a bad headlight or a defective taillight, they'll have the option to give $25 gift card to help the motorist get it fixed and then get them back on the road, says a representative from the Advanced Auto Parts. Denver Police Chief says officers have already issued cards and are enjoying the smiles it put on drivers' faces. Advanced Auto Parts donation not only helps us get the greater compliance with the motoring public, but it also helps us build and strengthen relationships with our community. Now, isn't that good news? Thank you, Advanced Auto Parts, for saving our behinds on the road. Now, why did the police arrest the turkey down the road? Because it had been suspected of foul play. And we're moving along. Two organizations led by Indigenous women have been awarded $10 million from the National Equity Can't Wait Challenge. The challenge asked for ideas to expand gender equality across the country. The group Native Women Lead and New Mexico Community Capital worked together on a proposal, especially for Indigenous women business owners. We want to get more money into the hands of Indigenous women. We also want to continue to lock arms with the New Mexico Community Capital to ensure that Indigenous women entrepreneurs who are aspiring to or already established can have the tools, resources, and capital to grow their business or launch their business, said the co-founder of Native Women Lead. The project is expected to serve more than 3,000 people over the next 5 years. Now, isn't that good news? I love that kind of good news. Now, here's a quote from a previous Indigenous Peoples Day celebration. It goes like this. We don't require Indigenous Peoples Day to remember how lovely our societies are. We need Indigenous People Day to delete Columbus from our memory, like he endeavored to eradicate us. Whew, I'm just saying, mark your calendars for October the 11th, 2021 for Indigenous Peoples Day here in New Mexico. I just love stories like that. So let's check in with our sassy grandmother, Little Big Mama. What do you have in store for us today? I can't wait for this, you all.
Thank you, Hassani. As a former school teacher and judge of a spelling bee contest, I hear a lot of people say the word icy is easy to spell. Wait a minute. I see why. Bye, baby.
Little Big Mama, I have a question for you. How does a farmer mend his overalls? With cabbage patches. The best way to turn a frown upside down is to get goo-goo for good news. I'm your correspondent, Hassani Ulujimi, featuring Little Big Mama. We'll see you right here next time on That Saturday Show with more good news. Don't forget to laugh, you guys. Laugh, chuckle, make somebody else laugh. Bye.
Oh, good news. That's what we need. And we're going to continue with good news with one of our Pajola groups, a youth group Generation Justice. Welcome, Generation Justice.
And welcome back to That Saturday Show. And I'm Jim Harvey, your host. And we are honored today to have another one of our Pajola group members, Peace and Justice Organizations Linking Arms. And these are our dynamic students that make up a group called Generation Justice. So I'm going to introduce the director and the founder of Generation Justice, Roberta Rael, and then I'm just going to sit back because they've got stuff to tell us. Roberta, welcome to That Saturday Show.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm so happy that we finally were able to make this happen. And so for our community, Generation Justice is 16 years old now. And we started off being the KUNM Youth Radio Project. Many of you probably listen to us on Sunday nights at 7 o'clock on KUNM. The young people here with me today, as well as many other young people, help to produce that radio hour for you every Sunday. And we train young people in a number of different ways. We train young people to harness the power of our community, and we utilize media justice, media literacy, our core values, critical consciousness, and an understanding of our community as the ways that young people then harness the power of our community. And so I won't take up a lot more time. We can talk a little bit more, but I'd love to bring the young people in to have them introduce themselves. And so I'm going to actually start with Gianna, then we'll go to Emilio, Isabel, and Lily. And if you'll just do your introductions, and then we'll talk a little bit about our summer.
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. My name is Gianna Ramirez. I am 15 years old, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm going to be a sophomore at El Dorado High School this fall. I identify as Nuevo Mexicana Chicana, and I am second generation Mexican American. I am also mixed with indigenous blood on both sides of my family, so both my mother and my father's sides. I've been with Generation Justice now for about 2 years, and I am currently a youth media justice intern. And so with that, I have to say that Generation Justice has been an amazing experience, and I'm super happy to be here. So I'll go ahead and pass it on.
Hello, my name is Emilio Bovale. I'm 15 years old. I attend Valley High School. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I've been with identify as Mexican, and I've been with Generation Justice for around 3 years now, and I'm a youth media justice intern, and yeah, I'm gonna pass it on.
Thank you, Emilio. Hi, everybody. My name is Isabel Becerra. I am 16 years old, and I will be a junior at Albuquerque High next year. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I identify as a person of mixed heritage. I have also been with Generation Justice for almost 4 years now, and with that, I will pass it on to Lily.
Thank you, Isabel. Hello, everyone. My name is Lily Lukow. I'm 18 years old. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I identify as white. I recently graduated from Cottonwood Classical, and I will be moving on to St. Louis University in the fall. I am a media justice intern, and I have been with Generation Justice for 4 years as well. Thank you.
So this summer at Generation Justice, these young people were part of our intensive summer program for young people. And we just did a lot of really fun, wonderful, and educational things together. One of the things that we did was a seminar-style study group. The focus of our seminar this summer is the issue that is the crux of so many of the other issues that we are dealing with right now in our society, and that is the issue of disinformation. So these young people studied, learned, and are now teaching about disinformation. So I'd like to invite them to just talk a little bit about what they learned, and just share a little bit more, and then we'll talk a little bit more general, the experience of being in Generation Justice even beyond the summer. So Emilio, do you want to start us off with with disinformation and the study group that you were part of?
Yes, I would love to. So this summer we had projects, and I was tasked with the project of disinformation. So basically, what disinformation is, it is false information that is purposely put out there to cause harm to a certain group of people, to a certain person, or an organization in general. And so then there's misinformation, which is false information that's passed on unintentionally. So if someone's, trying to look up some medical advice or something and it's completely wrong, but they don't mean any harm. And racialized disinformation is basically the same thing as disinformation, but racialized. So I'll elaborate a little bit. So, so basically, racialized disinformation is when someone tries to spread lies about a certain race or divide two people to go against each other.
Thank you so much, Emilio. Yes, so racialized information or disinformation is, as Emilio is saying, it's intentional, it's creating wedge issues between groups, creating separation, hate, and confusion. And there's cases of racialized disinformation where folks who aren't even, say, for example, Black women, pretending to be Black women, getting on Twitter and trying to influence certain communities based on even false identities. So that's an extreme of racialized disinformation, but that is the extent of what we have to be aware of when we're on line on platforms and listening to certain networks, both on radio and on TV. Isabel, do you want to talk a little bit about your seminar?
Yeah, so my group focused on disinformation around the coronavirus. So we talked about mask myths and vaccine myths. Some examples of mask myths. Excuse me. Some examples of mask myths are that athletes have difficulty breathing while wearing a mask, and we found research from the Hartford Health Care Rehabilitation Network proving that they found no sign that wearers were rebreathing carbon dioxide while exercising. And, that was a good myth to debunk because it makes everyone feel a little bit safer about, masks. And ultimately, it helps slow the cases down. So another very, very, very prevalent disinformation campaign that we find around vaccines are that the vaccine has been rushed. So, in a GJ interview with Rabia Khan, a research assistant at the UNM hospital in a lab that specializes in vaccine development, explained that the development of vaccines for similar viruses, SARS viruses, have been in the process of research years prior to this pandemic. And so in our group, we pretty much decided, we found that the vaccine already had a strong foundation. And so in the months that they were preparing the vaccine and were developing the vaccine, it already had a strong foundation. And that was pretty much our response to debunking the vaccine myths.
Thank you. Kiana?
So my group focused on critical race theory, especially around all of the controversy going around about critical race theory right now. And so critical race theory is an academic theory which studies racism throughout systems, specifically in America and its history. And so basically looks at the overall lens of racism through systems, so systematic racism throughout US's history and really throughout our history as a nation in general, but also how it relates to today. And so we really focused on that because right now there's a lot of controversy going around and it's mostly due to disinformation. And so the difference between critical race theory though and like anti-racism work is that critical race theory is like the academic study of racism, especially in systems, where anti-racism work is work actively being done to prevent and stop racism on all levels, And so with that, though the two works are really related, disinformation has spread a lot of false narratives out there that those two works are the exact same and they're grouped together and they're taught in schools when they're not. Anti-racism work is somewhat brought through curriculums in some schools, but it's pretty rare right now. And critical race theory is taught through law schools and maybe some college classes. So a lot of the disinformation is saying that critical race theory and anti-racism work are one thing and that they're really bad. They have really false narratives, or they teach people that overall white people in general are oppressive, or that America is this horrible country, when the goal of it is really just to look deeper into the systemic systems that are racist and that contribute to the oppression of groups of people. And so our group really focused on finding the truth in all of the disinformation and trying to figure out really why critical race theory is something needed and why more anti-racism curriculum is also needed, and that it's not going to cause some sort of divide like a lot of the other false narratives are saying.
Thank you, Gianna. And groups like the Peace and Justice Center, groups like Generation Justice, and other groups in our community and beyond across this country have been working in anti-racism for many, many, many decades. And it's really important that this controversy that is being stirred up right now, really based in lies and disinformation, is held accountable to those lies and disinformation, because this country, this community is only going to be better when we are working on anti-racism. Anti-racism brings health, brings wealth, brings goodness into our communities. And anything other than that we're hearing is absolutely not the truth. Is there anything else that any of you want to add about the seminars this summer, the study groups that you all did your own research, that you looked at, you had opportunity to learn from various experts across the country? Is there anything else anybody wants to add before we move on to listening to Lily?
In my group, we got our information from the Sowenstein Center and Dr. Joanne Donovan.
Thank you. Thank you, Emilio. That's an important a resource. The Sorenstein Center that is based in the Harvard Kennedy School, and there's some amazing research and key researchers coming out of that center that's helping us to learn more about disinformation. So thanks for raising that, Emilio. Lily, you didn't participate in any of our seminars, but I'd love to hear and have you share with the audience about your experience at Generation Justice.
And I would love to share. Before I jump into that, I just want to express how impressed I was with all of the interns and their presentations. They all just worked together so well and created such beautiful presentations that were so informative. So I'm really glad that we can share that with you guys today. I have been a part of Generation Justice for 4 years, and I am so proud of all of the growth that I have made throughout my journey through it. And I just want to bring up some really foundational and important points of my own growth throughout my my opportunity with Generation Justice. So when I started, I was not strong in my own identity. And I wasn't able to just go up in front of a room and say, hello, my name is Lily Lukow, and share my own hopes for the future and who I was as a person. And I think that, through having to introduce myself and being strong and understanding the power in my own identity, I was really able to just grow and flourish and understand who I am as a person more clearly and be able to express that with others in a really powerful way. And so that was just a really big growth point for me in my own life. And I'm just so grateful for Generation Justice for allowing me to do that. And so I've grown in my own development and my own leadership as well. I had a greater role in the last couple of years in helping with social media. I've gotten to help with the creation of social media, helping with others, like training with social media, I do scheduling, I create graphics, I'll draft the language, and there's a lot to it. And not only am I making social media, but I'm having really thoughtful conversations about the language I use and like the power that the language that we use can hold and narrative shift and things like that. And so it's been a really powerful experience for me to understand the power in my own voice and then the power in language in general. And I'm just really grateful that I've had the opportunity to grow in my skills in technology and also just in language in general. And I'm really excited to see our social media continue to flourish and grow. So
Thanks, Lily. Yeah, so for folks that watch this Peace and Justice program, when you look at our social media, know that it has been designed, developed by young people like Lily. Social media is, a real job. Larger organizations have, several professionals working on producing their social media. Generation Justice, we're a very small, humble, and humbly funded project, but we're so lucky to have young people who want to learn and put their best out for our work every single week. So just want to kind of add that. I'm just kind of wanting to see if anybody else would like to share any other like favorite experiences with Generation Justice. If there are any young people or parents or teachers watching this program, like what would they need to know about our project or in our organization that might bring in other young people? So if any of you want to share any of that, I think that would be really awesome. And our core values, maybe.
For me, Generation Justice it's one huge family. It's just one big loving community where everybody, it doesn't matter your race, your gender, your sexual preference, it doesn't matter. You're always welcome here. And we go to do a lot of events. We learn a lot about the people in our community. For example, I've been to the Capitol a few times, and one event I do remember going with Generation Justice to a few years ago. One of my first years with Generation Justice was the opening day of the legislative session in 2019, and yeah, that was a very fun experience. And no, I just love it here.
I think for me, Generation Justice strives to raise critical consciousness among youth and among the community. And we practice that through leadership development and youth empowerment and also civic engagement. A perfect example of that is when I got an opportunity, me and another GJ member and many youth from around New Mexico got an opportunity to talk to four cabinet secretaries about issues that we saw in our communities, and we were even able to make recommendations to them and have a wonderful conversation with them as youth to these people in such large places of power. And I just really appreciate Generation Justice for opening up opportunities like that, and giving me a lot of power. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel.
Yeah, for me, I've been given a lot of really amazing opportunities through Generation Justice. Currently I'm on the National Host Committee for the Race Forward conference, Race and Our Present, Our Future. And so that has been really amazing because it's going to be a really youth-catered, youth-centered conference. And it's just something you don't see, sadly, very often. And so having youth and these amazing organizations from across the country coming together on one committee to really plan something has been really amazing. But I have to say in general, like I've gotten so many different opportunities that have helped me to grow in my own leadership. And also I would feel like in my own identity as well. I had the opportunity to speak to Senator Martin Heinrich in a roundtable discussion we had last fall. And it's just opportunities like this that even through a pandemic, we've really been able to grow with one another, and help our communities and send the truth of, stopping disinformation and sending that real information out. And so I feel like overall, we've all gotten a lot closer over the pandemic in a way, and definitely over the summer internship. And so I feel like because Generation Justice is like one big family, we really uplift each other, and that's what allows us to become stronger leaders.
So, Roberta, please share with our viewers how to get in touch with you.
And I'm going to kick that question over to Lily because Lily
All right.
our social media all the time. So Lily.
Thank you, Roberta. So you can get in contact with Generation Justice on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or you can check us out on KUNM or our website, generationjustice.org, where we air our podcast and share things like that. But if you want to listen on Sunday nights, like Roberta mentioned earlier, you can listen on KUNM at 7 o'clock on Sundays. And we'll be airing a production this Sunday, so you can listen in then.
And actually the production this Sunday, well, I'm not sure when you're airing this, but the young people seminar presentations are going to be happening on our radio show the next several Sundays. So if you'd love to learn more about disinformation, please tune in to our radio show where you can hear these young people and the rest of their partners teach about disinformation in general, disinformation around masks, the vaccine, and disinformation around critical race theory.
This is an incredible presentation, and I want to thank you. Roberta, you continue to do magnificent work. And students, interns, I am in awe of the work that you all have done, and I just encourage you to keep doing it. Thank you all for coming on That Saturday Show, and we're going to be tuning in to Generation Justice as well. And we'll be looking forward to exciting and great things in the future. Thanks again. You all take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Peace and Justice Center, for all your good work in our community. Much love.
It's our much love to you. Bye-bye.
Stop your crying, it'll be alright. Just take my hand, hold it tight. I will protect you from all around you. I will be here, don't you cry. For one so small, you seem so strong. My arms will hold you, keep you safe and warm. This bond between us can't be broken. I will be here, don't you cry. 'Cause you'll be in my heart. Yes, you'll be in my heart. From this day on, now and forevermore, forevermore. You'll be in my heart, no matter what they say. You'll be here in my heart, always. Don't listen to him, 'cause what does he know? Love is all that we know. We need each other to have to hold. You'll see into this paradise. I know we are family. When destiny calls you, you must be strong. I may not be with you, but you gotta hold on. They'll see in time. I know we'll endless stay on, now and forevermore. Oh, you'll be in my heart, no matter what they say. You'll be here in my heart,
On Wednesday, July 28th, the Westside Democrats of Bernalillo County sponsored a panel of experts on the Cannabis Regulation Act of 2021. That panel consisted of New Mexico's State Representative Javier Martinez, Superintendent for the New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department, Linda Trujillo, Ben Luiger from the New Mexico Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, and Paul Hadel, who is the City of Albuquerque's Deputy Policy Director. During the panel, many different issues were discussed. At the beginning, State Representative Javier Martinez started by talking about the legislation itself and what was in there and what wasn't in there. He talked about how the legislation has provisions for micro-business licensing systems, and another part, which is the automatic expungement of records of people with cannabis-related charges. I think the small ones in the possession area. And that there are procedures for having diversity in our applicants for the upcoming recreational cannabis dispensaries. That there's also some new items that need to be addressed, some things that did not make it into this bill. He said there was no funding for small businesses, or what he calls the Social Equity Fund, and needing funds for treatment from the proceeds of cannabis sales. Those were not specifically outlined in the bill. And he says that those are things that he's going to continue to work on, and calls the Cannabis Regulation Act basically it's a living document, and that changes will happen, changes that need to be made that didn't get into this coming bill. And so this is not the end of the line. More progress will come on this in the coming years. He did mention that the tax rates that we're charging for the recreational use will be comparable to other states around us. Then Ben Luinger of the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, the New Mexico Cannabis Chamber, which you can find at nmcannabischamber.org, spoke. And he talked about how that the current medical cannabis program in our state is robust and it works very well. And that what he likes about it too is that production in medical cannabis is vertical, and so that that the same folks are usually involved in many of the same processes up the line in creating the chain. That the recreational part will allow participation differently. Instead of having to be more involved in all the levels of production, that people can get licenses for specific parts of the production process and not have to manage the entire thing. He sees this as a plus so that people can just work on their strengths. Then Linda Trujillo, the superintendent of the New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department, spoke. I'll have to say that at the beginning, she just gave a quick intro about herself and her department. And I'm going to get to what she said later, because it was clear that during the question and answer session that she was most ready to answer a lot of the questions that came before the panel. And this is probably because her department is the entry point for the regulation process to begin. So her department is dealing with this hands-on as we speak. Paul Hadel of the City of Albuquerque, Deputy Policy Director, spoke during his intro, talked about how they're going to be putting regulations in place, and they're looking at when the IDO can be amended to do some smart planning about having places for recreational cannabis dispensing. And that Albuquerque has a time crunch to implement the regs into the IDO. That part I was not completely certain what he meant, but it's clear that there's some IDO amendments coming or that need to happen. So then we got into the question and answer session. Someone asked about zoning, because we were talking about dispensing recreational cannabis, but what about zoning for consumption lounges, delays? And it took me a second to figure out what consumption lounges, kind of like the hookah lounges, except for recreational cannabis. And Superintendent Trujillo said that right now that's not at the forefront. They're obligated to make licensing rules first for producers and not manufacturers yet. They're working with a testing system still. They're focused on the retail sales first, and that lounges would come later. In reference to are there resources for people who want to get into retail, Superintendent Trujillo said there's no funds yet, but they're making some workshops and expos to help educate people about the process. Representative Martinez said that this is a great place where the New Mexico Cannabis Chamber can help. And he feels that this industry should make $40 to $50 million per year, and that can fund treatment services and money for education as well. So another viewer asked about water demand. Where does the water come for industrial growing? Are there going to be water rights required for growing licenses? And Representative Martinez said, yes, water rights are going to be needed for cannabis production, for the farming part of cannabis production. And Superintendent Trujillo said they're working with the state engineer to figure out the rules on all of this. And as you know, in our state, when it comes to water, that is one of the hardest obstacles to deal with, and because we're always in tight supply, and trying to figure out where one gets from the other is always a challenge. Someone asked about are there protections for small businesses so that they don't get taken over by big corporations who want to get into the recreational side. Superintendent Trujillo mentioned that there's some economic equity responsibilities written in. They're developing a plan right now, so there was nothing specific. Representative Martinez said this is part of his working to create a fund. And Ben Lewinger said that micro licenses will not have a per plant fee, so that making it, I guess, more accessible with a flat fee to micro businesses. Another question that came up was, can people with prior convictions or currently on parole get a license? Prior convictions do not bar, but current parolees on a case-by-case basis. So that was the answer, I think, that came from, I quoted from the actual text of the legislation, that if you have a prior conviction, that doesn't bar you from getting a license. Only if you're currently on parole, and even then there may be a case-by-case study as to, depending on what you're on parole for. So it may even be possible at that level. The law states that for The following are considered substantially related to the qualifications, functions, or duties to a person seeking a license. A felony conviction involving fraud, deceit, or embezzlement, or a felony conviction for hiring. So those are the two areas where you could, if you have a conviction in that area, that might bar you from getting a license. And employing or otherwise using a person younger than 18. So those are very important considerations. It was mentioned that over 150 people have already applied for licensing. And one of the things the Regulation and Licensing Department is working really hard to do is to be sure that there's a diversity of qualified applicants who can receive them. There should be some announcements from that department coming very soon. And the way she said very soon makes me think that in the closing weeks, maybe a month. In closing remarks, Representative Martinez said that, we all need to keep educating ourselves and asking questions, that this is not a simple industry, and he's proud to get done what he got done. He feels it's one of the most equitable frameworks created out there in the United States, that the war on drugs has created so much loss of life and property, etc., and he's proud of being part of the solution and leading the way. We were the 17th state to legislate. We would have been the 16th, but New York got in just hours before we did. And Ben Lewinger of the New Mexico Cannabis Chamber of Commerce said that the public rarely has access to a bill sponsor like we have here in a small state. And so Representative Javier Martinez is like the main bill sponsor of this, and suggesting that contacting Representative Martinez with issues with legislation and process would be well received. All in all, I have to say, very upbeat. I found a lot of people, the bureaucrats involved, that actually felt like they were in motion, that wanted to do this right, and are taking the task at hand seriously. So this has been the Steve Cabiedes with the Westside Dems event report on the Cannabis Regulation Act of 2020. Thanks.
Just before we go to this exciting announcement, I wanted to let you know that the Public Utilities Commission will be holding a public hearing on Monday, August 9th at the Public Utilities Commission in Santa Fe on the Avigrid PNM merger proposal. So if you've got comments, written comments, public comments, it's not too late to get them in. We've got to have our voices heard. And now, our interns have joined the show and have an exciting public announcement for you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Jason and this is Hillary. And we want our segment to be about what happened during the COVID outbreak, mostly like how it fell and everything. And if I'm correct, I think we also wanted to add some fun aspects as well. So like maybe like little fun games or whatnot. Yeah.
And for example, we want to focus on what it's like going back to school with this new COVID variant being out. And we also want to, like Jason said, lighten things up with sports and other activities that our school is doing. So yeah, we're pretty excited about this segment.
Good. That's going to be really exciting information to share from firsthand experience, right?
Yep. Yes.
So you guys excited about headed back to school?
Yes, but it is nerve-wracking jumping right back into everything so fast.
Yeah.
So.
You've been gone for quite a while, haven't you?
Yep. Yes.
Seems like an eternity out there.
Yeah, it actually
right?
felt like it.
Yes, I'm sure you've missed your friends and your classmates.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, have you missed your studies?
Well,
A little bit.
it's difficult.
Well, I'm sure you're ready to jump right back into it and give it all you got.
Yeah.
Yep.
And bring that experience back to that Saturday show. We're glad you guys are here, and we're looking forward to that show. All right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No
All
problem.
right.
To that Saturday show, I'm Jim Harvey, your host, and We've got a continuing saga that just doesn't seem to go away, but we've got people that are working on the front lines to make something happen. We're talking about compelling the Environmental Improvement Board to hold a public hearing, among other things, which would result in a full investigation of disposals of tin norm, radioactive waste and materials in the city of Rio Rancho, with the goal of remediation and regulatory compliance and enforcement. And with us today are two incredible women that are working on this project. And I want to welcome Elaine Cimino of Common Ground Rising and a Pajolo group member, I might add. And with her is Eleanor Bravo, who claims she's retired, but she keeps working hard. She's a resident of the city of Sandoval County, rather, and chair of the board of New Energy. So welcome, Elaine. Welcome, Eleanor. Bring us up to speed on what's happening here.
Thank you so much, Jim, for having us. I am a resident of Corrales. We have domestic water wells here, and this issue has been brought to our attention by other residents here in Sandoval County. We're extremely, extremely concerned that this radioactive T-norm waste could reach our groundwater, who knows when. And we have all domestic water wells. This is a terrible, terrible issue for us. And we want to have a hearing in front of the Environmental Improvement Board. We would like a full investigation so we can find out what happened and what they are going to do about it. And Elaine has created wonderful materials so that the grassroots organizations and other residents can get involved so their voice can be heard and we can get our agencies to listen to us.
So, Elaine?
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes, we're working as commongroundrising.org. You can find some of this information on our blog at commongroundrising.org/blog, and you will find the Action Network petition link. I understand that they're going to show that on the screen shortly.
That's right, we'll post those as well.
And what we need is we need groups to support our petition, and we need people. We need people to sign this petition to show a significant public interest in this issue. We're talking to the people of Sandoval County, of Bernalillo County, and downstream, and those that are downwind of the radiation dump that was left in the city of Rio Rancho municipal landfill. So I hope that we do get the community support for this serious issue. We have a potential public health issue and safety issue here. And this, was blowing in the wind out there. And there's 4 schools that are around that area, homes and businesses. And they're currently trying to build a low-income housing at the base of the landfill right behind the Lowe's on Northern Boulevard. The city has approved that. And really the city has not been able, has not really enforced their ordinances. And that would be another thing that people could do, is to call city council and ask them to enforce their ordinances. But what the city has been saying is that it's really up to the state to enforce this. And so that's why we are going to the EIB, the Environmental Improvement Board. So please sign the petition and get your name on that petition. so that we can show the significant public interest that we need.
You know, New Mexico continues to be just so hard hit with all of this dumping of nuclear waste and radioactive waste, and everybody then points fingers at one another, and no one seems to do anything about it. So I'm just so glad that you all are on top of this issue. And yes, I hope people really line up and let's get a robust petition drive going.
I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah, Jim, the bottom line here is that radioactive dumping is against the law. It's against federal law. It's against local law. But there's no transparency in what some of these private corporations have done. And that's why we want our state agencies to step up and do a full investigation. There seems to have been some really inappropriate communication. The NM New Mexico Environment Department seems to have made some decisions, and there's no record of how they came to these decisions. So we just want full transparency, because this is our home, our lives, our water. Our children live here, and we deserve to know what happened, and we want to find out if this really is as egregious as we think it is, and we want to know what our state agencies are going to do about it.
Thank you so much for that. And we've got about 30 seconds left, and I'd just like to hear from both of you just a quick wrap up in terms of just any other steps that we need to take.
Sign the petition, commongroundrising.org/blog to find the link for the petition and all the background information. There's 4 years of writing about these brine wells out there. And, you know, we've been at this 4 years of investigating and doing this research.
Get involved. This is our home. It's our responsibility to take care of it. Don't turn your power over to any entity. It's your home. Do something.
Elaine, Cimino, Eleanor Bravo, you're my heroes. Thank you so much. And we're behind you 100%. Thank you for the important and good work. Take care.
Thank you
for having me.
Take care.
Until the next time, it's time to say goodbye. When you out here in the streets, keep it real, 505. We love everybody, we just want to let you know. Thanks for tuning in to That Saturday Show.